and welcome back if you're a returning viewer. So today I have a little bit of a different video for you all, as I'm sure you were able to tell from the beginning. And yeah, I wanted to take you through a few things sort of in my weekend and kind of walk you through some of my making this weekend. But before I get into it, I will sort of address a few housekeeping items. I am in the dreaded corner. If you've been here before, you know about this corner. The thing is, I know that the lighting is off. The lighting is not essential for this portion of the video, which is why I chose to sit here. And what I did do is I actually did take the time to set up one of my studio lights to see if that will make this corner a little bit more of a feasible corner for me to film videos from. And the reason for that is that this corner is always set up in this manner. This is my reading slash knitting slash therapy session corner. So it's always set up in this manner. So if I ever am in the mood to sort of just sit down and film a quick video, it's really best for me to do it from this corner, which is why in the past I've put out videos from this corner, even though it's not necessarily ideal. And so I think that given that this corner is already always set up, if I only have to set up my studio light and still get pretty decent lighting in this corner, then I might actually film from here a little bit more often. So that's kind of the first item. The second item is that I do have the window cracked open today, so you will likely hear a little bit more nature and road noise than typical. I always do edit it out for the most part in post-production, but I do live in a city. I live street side, and although it's a pretty quiet street, it is a weekend, so there tends to be a little bit more through traffic on weekends. So you might hear some birds chirping. The birds have been very, very active today, especially the mockingbirds. I don't hear the mockingbirds right now, but yesterday and today, the mockingbirds have been out of control. They're just crazy. So if you hear bird noise, that's what it is. We're going with it. This is more of a casual vlog, so hopefully you all will be okay with that. So let's get into what this video is actually going to be. And so I hope that I have enough footage to have had a nice little intro section, but I have a couple of days where, I have to get some admin stuff done with regard to my knitting. And I actually just turned in a really big assignment at school. So I have a bit more free time on the weekend than I normally would. And so I wanted to sort of take you all through how I plan out my knitting life, if you will, whether it's sample knits, test knitting, personal knitting, YouTube channel stuff, Instagram stuff, Ravelry stuff, and I wanted to take you all through all that and kind of how I manage. So this weekend is a pretty crummy weekend, weather-wise. Although yesterday was supposed to be pretty crummy all day, and we got a pretty nice, good chunk of sunshine in the middle of the day. But today and tomorrow are really supposed to be rainy and super overcast. So I'm going to be indoors. I don't have a lot of school work to do, and I wanted to catch up on some of my knitting and also sort of get in a role and maybe get a little bit of head on channel admin so that I don't feel as pressured to put out videos all the time, and I can put out content for you all on a more regular basis. So I wanted to talk through kind of how I map out my knitting, and I spoke to this in a Instagram post, which I will link below. And I was reminded of this when I was watching one of my friend Haley of the Knit Weekend's older videos recently, that I had mentioned this in my Instagram post, and I had never mentioned it here on the channel. And the reason I know that is because I was also chatting with Tashi at the same time that I was watching that video, and they were like, "What are you talking about?" And I realized I've never spoken about it on the channel. I only spoke about it on Instagram. So I wanted to sort of chat you all through how I make progress on my knitting, especially as you all know that I am also multicraftual and I tend to have a lot of whips going at the same time. And although not the case at the moment, but I do typically have a couple of test knits and sample knits that are going on at the same time. And I always want to make sure that I make progress toward all of my knitting. Also, it's a way for me to keep my personal knitting that maybe does not have hard deadlines going so that I don't sort of lose steam on any one project or another. And so I wanted to talk to you all through that in this video and kind of bring you along for the weekend in what I have been doing. So I did film a little bit of footage yesterday. I was feeling a little under the weather, so I ended up taking the day off from work, but then I did get out for lunch with friends, and then I spent most of the night just knitting and at home. And then today and tomorrow is kind of just, life. It is a little later in the day today. Today, it's about 1 o'clock because I really focused this morning on starting the morning off slowly. I did a little bit of knitting and also just getting my house in order so that I could feel like I'm in a good place to do some of these tasks. And so I wanted to go ahead and jump in. So for any given week, and I do this pretty much every single week, regardless of what I might have going on. I have 3 to-do lists essentially at the beginning of the week. So every Monday, I start the week writing my to-do lists. And this probably, it's funny because as I was talking about this, I talked about in my Instagram post, I called it like my milestone knitting method. And it came to the realization as I was watching that Haley's video, and I had just finished doing some of my management homework, that I am such like a project manager to my core. But essentially what I do is I start out the beginning of my week every Monday writing 3 to-do lists. And so 1 is my work to-do list, what I have to get done for the week. 2 is my personal to-do list, what I need to get done at home. Whether it's, run errands. Most of these days I get a lot of things delivered. So do I need to order a grocery delivery? Is my housekeeper coming? So I need to know, I have to do a different type of tidy when she comes versus a regular, sort of Monday. Things like that. Do I have any doctor's appointments coming up that I need to manage my time for? And then I have my knitting to-do list. And so that will usually involve not only items that I'm working on, but also any admin that I need to do either for the channel, Instagram, or any other commitments that I might have with regard to my knitting. And so I start out my week in that way. And this way, what I do then with regard to my knitting specifically, I will look at my week and say, okay, this is the progress that I need to make on XYZ knits. So typically, even though I may have like 7, 8, 9 whips going at a time, I'm typically only actively working in a given week, maybe on 3, maximum 4 whips in a given week. And so depending on the deadlines or, either actual deadlines or personal deadlines that I might have for the knitting, I will choose the 3 or 4 knits that I'm going to work on that week. And then I will choose what I need to finish in that week to be able to continue to make progress toward my goal of finishing the project. And so in this way, I'm not necessarily planning like on Monday I'm going to knit this, on Tuesday I'm going to knit this, Wednesday, blah, blah, blah. So I just have my 3 to 4 whips that I'm working on, and then I have the progress that I want to make on them. And then what I can do throughout the week as I do have time to knit, I can pick up whatever I feel like working on at that given time. I also try to keep it a little bit interesting in terms of having a couple of easier whips and a couple more complicated whips, because then I can actually look at my work and school schedule right now and say, hey, this is a very meeting heavy week. So that means I actually will be able to, okay, so like, let's say this is a very meeting heavy week where most of the meetings I'm in, I am not leading. I'm in the meeting as sort of an interloper, if you will. I'm a change manager. So a lot of meetings that I sit in on, I'm not leading. I'm actually listening and gathering information. And then my work happens after the meetings. So let's say this is a meeting heavy week where I'm not leading the meetings. They're like design sessions. So I'm sitting in on design sessions, listening in, maybe taking notes here and there. That means that I'm going to be able to get a lot of knitting done that week. And so I might try to fit in a bigger project. Or let's say that it is a week where it is meeting heavy, but I know that I am leading meetings. So after, requirements gathering, then I'm forming my strategies, my plans, and I'm presenting them. Or I am, sort of debriefing from various meetings that I've had that I need to sort of update stakeholders on. Those weeks, I know I'm not going to be able to get in as much knitting. So I'm going to have that be a little bit of a lighter milestone week, if you will. And so in this way, I kind of can sync up my knitting life and my work life and my school life all together and make it work so that I still feel like I'm able to craft and I'm still able to create and be creative, and not feel necessarily overwhelmed when work can get a little bit much. Now, that doesn't mean I don't occasionally get overwhelmed by my knitting, and that doesn't mean I don't occasionally get overwhelmed by work. Definitely happens, but I think that this is a way for me to strike a really good balance. I also recognize that I'm very lucky. I don't have children, I don't have anyone to take care of. It's just pretty much me and the cats, and we take care of each other and our house. And so, I'm very lucky in that way that, I kind of have this ability. But I think that this also could work for someone who maybe, does have those, child responsibilities and that kind of stuff. I was actually recently watching Laura Penrose's sort of vlogs or podcasts that she's put out on how she sort of works her design business around her busy life as a mom. And I think that, this is a prime example of that. You recognize what you need to get done in the week or in the day, when you have your kids around, when you don't have your kids around, and you kind of, know when you can knit what. So like I kind of do the same thing, where it's like I know when I can knit during a work meeting and I know when I can't knit during a work meeting. And so that's just a really great way, I think, of being able to prioritize some of your making when you are a busy person, whether it's with a full-time job or you're a student or you're a mom or any other responsibilities that you might have. So that's kind of like my little milestone method in a nutshell. I wanted to show you all or wanted to share with you kind of my list for this weekend. I've created a little bit of a micro list for the weekend, and I will then primarily put in vlog footage for the rest of today as well as tomorrow, and then I will meet you back tomorrow night with the progress that I've made. So I'll go ahead and pull up my phone so that I can pull up my list. And so the items that I have to finish from an admin perspective, so I'll show you the items that I'm going to work on and what progress I want to make toward them. But from an admin perspective, I did recently block a bunch of or a bunch of FOs and a bunch of whips. So I want to make sure I take some FO and some whip pictures, and then with that also update my Ravelry. I do have a podcast that's going up this weekend, and so I always like to make sure before I put up a podcast that my Ravelry is as up to date as possible. It's not as easy for me to update Ravelry on a daily basis, so I get into this uh, sort of what's the word I'm looking for? I just get into the habit of updating it at least once a month, and then I think that that's a very manageable way for me to stay on top of my Ravelry. especially because I know a lot of you really rely on my information that I write on there, because I do make a lot of modifications and things like that. So I want to make sure that my Ravelry page is always as updated as possible. I also need to edit and schedule 2 videos. So I did manage to film 2 videos during the week. And so one is the podcast that's going up tomorrow from when I'm filming this little clip. And then I filmed a little spring makings plans video. So I do need to edit and schedule those. And that's actually a really good knitting time for me, and that's, typically when I will knit something smaller like a sock, or if I have something stockinette in the rounds, because if you've been here for a while, do pretty minimal editing for my sit down videos, so it really allows me to really sit down and kind of do a little bit knitting as well. And then I want to organize the scraps that I have been storing for my sweet shop blanket that's in progress, that you all have not seen yet, and you all will not see until May podcast episode. But I have recently pulled out a bunch of scraps, and they're kind of willy-nilly all over the place in a random basket. And so a couple weekends ago when I went to IKEA, I actually bought a basket that I wanted to dedicate to the blanket. So I want to go ahead and organize those scraps by putting them all in the same place, but also by tagging them so I know exactly what it is that I'm knitting on. I also just want to be better at doing this in general when I finish things and I have my scraps, and it's not like a full skein. I want to make sure that I'm better about tracking that so that in the future I know what it is, especially because I do tend to come back to the same yarns over and over. So it's a really great way to, if you're thinking about, sort of swatching for a project in that yarn that you already know you have some in your stash. It's a little bit, even if it's not the same color for the pattern that you intend on making, it's a really great way to be able to swatch with those yarns. So definitely want to be better about cataloging my scraps going into the new year, or not new year at this point, but into 2025 and in the future. So that's kind of the admin. And then I will show you what I am working on in terms of my knitting milestones this weekend. So the first one that I have is my Mariner pullover, which you all have not seen here on the channel. And this is a pullover designed by Amy Scher. And so this is what it looks like. And so you will see that it is actually blocked. So I did do a mid-project block on this because I am knitting a size that I typically do not knit in Amy Scher Makes. This is a Mariner style pullover. It will have buttons here, and it is an oversized sort of a little bit of a sweatshirt feel. So I knew that I wanted more of a less ease for mine, for more of a traditional mariner pullover feel. Wow. And so I'm actually knitting the size down. I also was bad. I did not gauge swatch. I just cast it on. So Amy and I have pretty comparable gauges. So if I'm not sample knitting for them or test knitting for them, I pretty much just cast on and go with it. So for those 2 reasons, because I'm knitting a size that's normally not my size, and because I didn't gauge swatch, I did want to do a mid-project block to make sure that everything was fitting well, and it is. So now I am hoping to actually have this done by next weekend, because that is when cherry blossoms peak here in New Jersey. So I want to take my FO pictures of this next weekend. And also I want to be able to enjoy it before it gets too warm. So the spring here, I can definitely wear a long sleeve wool sweater. Depending on how the weather goes, sometimes all the way up until like the end of May. Some years it's not as long, some years it's shorter. Also depends on if I'm up in our cabin or if I'm in the city proper. Up in our cabin, I can wear sweaters all summer long. So we have a cabin in the Catskills, our family does. And so, yeah. So I wanted to be able to finish this for next weekend so that I can take pictures with the cherry blossoms. So for this particular weekend, I wanted to be able to pick up and knit the neckbands and finish one sleeve. And this is actually one good thing for me to know about this sort of milestone method, is that it also really helps to know your own ability in terms of how much you can knit in a day or in an hour or whatever it might be. So for a DK weight sweater like this one, I know that I can knit one sleeve in one day. So that this to me represents pretty much 2.5 days of knitting. And so that is how I'm able to say, going into this weekend, I can knit the neckband and I can knit the sleeve, and then I know I can knit the second sleeve and block it before next weekend. So when you're using this method, it definitely helps to know your knitting ability so that you can properly gauge your goals for the week, right? This isn't a situation like in work where you're creating stretch goals for yourself. You don't want to hurt yourself. Do not hurt your wrists or your elbows. Andrea would be very angry with me if I promoted overexerting when it comes to knitting. So yeah, when you're sort of taking on this method, it's really helpful to have a general concept of your knitting ability. So the other goal that I had this weekend, which actually I've now pretty much finished, was to cast on for the Relax Tee, which is another Amy Sure Makes pattern. This is one that I did not test knit, but I knew I wanted to make, and then they are currently running the ASM 2025 MAL, so this is my project for the make along. So if you have watched my spring making plans video, which is in the future from when I'm filming this, in the past from when you're seeing this, you will know the yarn that I'm using, which is Pearl Soho Linen Quill in the color Rosewood Pink. And actually, I will say this studio light situation, I think is going to happen. I think I'm going to sit here a lot more often, which means I'm going to talk to you all a lot more often. Maybe, hopefully. But this is a swatch. And yeah, so I am going to make the Relax Tee for the make along. And I have already started. My goal for the weekend was just to start and join in the round, and I've already done that. So it's not looking like much, but this is what it's looking like. I have managed to get in two of the purl ridges. So I just finished the second purl ridge, and I'm going to call this goal complete for the weekend. And if I, for some reason, finish the first sleeve on my Mariner, what I'll do is I'll cast on for the second sleeve and leave that for meeting knitting, because that's probably a little bit easier for meeting knitting since it's smaller. I don't have to or even class knitting, so I don't have to manage a big thing, and then I might make a little bit more progress on this. If that's the case, I might try to maybe get through all the raglan shaping or something, but this goal is already finished. I did cast on yesterday, which was April 4th, which was the official start of the MAL, and like I mentioned, I had a pretty sort of slow, steady day at home because I wasn't feeling too great. So I made good progress on that. My other progress for the weekend that I wanted to do, I just have it in a little bag. And I feel like this is the Amy Sure Makes Stan episode, and you will see why in a moment, is a pair of socks. And they actually match really well with my sweater. So these socks I am knitting in Little Fiber Co, Little Yarn Co, Little Fiber Co. I'm so sorry, Lauren. Little Fiber Co, I'm pretty sure. Yarn. And this is yarn that I picked up in Flock 2024. It's been my stash. It is the Flock colorway, so it is pairs well with friends. And then because I bought this as a sock set, there was a sort of unnamed contrast color that goes with it. And so those are the colors. Oh my God, this studio light situation, y'all, this corner is gonna happen. It's gonna be a thing. You're gonna all get sick of me sitting here because this is amazing. This is the socks that I picked up at Flock. And when I picked this up, if you watch that video, you know that I specifically said I wanted to make the Wisteria Bloom socks, which I have now cast on. So at this point, because of grad school, I pretty much always have a pair of socks on the needles. They make really good lecture reading, or lecture knitting, I should say, because I do have to be on camera and I prefer to knit smaller things, so I'm not constantly having to pull up yarn like so. So I tend to knit a lot of socks. So I've been turning out socks. But these are the Wisteria Bloom socks, again by Amy Sure Makes. So they have this picot edge. The stitch marker is by Reshma of Hello Lavender. And then it has this little lace panel in the contrast. And then the sock itself is a flat 3x1 rib. So I finished the lace, and then at the beginning of the weekend, so yesterday, I will have had some footage in there. I had knit about half of the contrast heel flap. And so my goal for the weekend was to essentially finish the heel flap and turn the heel and pick up for the gusset, because I knew that I was going to have a couple of lunch dates with friends. So I had the lunch date yesterday. So I had just picked up for the gusset yesterday. So I was, I finished half the heel flap and picked up for the gusset yesterday morning. And then I just left it, for lunch. And then I was able to finish the gusset and a few rows. So I always mark the end of my gusset because that's how, right here, that's how I then measure my foot, because I have my, I have my sock recipe memorized, so I don't have to measure it. I just knit to my sock recipe and it will fit my foot. So I managed to finish the gusset and start on the actual foot. So I do have lunch plans with a friend again tomorrow. So these are going back in my bag. And again, this is another sort of goal that I've already achieved before I sat down to film. And so these will be great to knit on while I'm at brunch tomorrow. And then last but not least in my knitting goals for the weekend, and then I will leave you 2 more vlog footage because I've been sitting and talking for way too long, is technically something that's already finished, but is a little bit of admin that I have to do. And so I was able to finish during the week my Avenue T test for Tori U of Tori Knits NYC. And I love it. And the reason why I said I feel like this is an ASM Stan episode is because this is yarn that I purchased from Amy Sure Makes site. So this is Durham Natura Candide, which is a cotton merino blend, and it is absolutely delicious. And so yeah, so this tee is completely finished. I managed to finish it during the week. So now I have to block it, and also I will take some finished object photos of it unworn so that I can put them on my Ravelry. And then typically once on the day that the project is released, that is when I will upload my modeled FO picture. So I'll share the modeled FO pictures with the designer beforehand, and then I'll post my modeled FO pictures to Ravelry on the day the pattern's released, as well as post it to Instagram. And so again, this is another top that I'm hoping to get pictures of next weekend. So I wanted to go ahead and block it this weekend. I'll go ahead and put in some before and after footage of what it looks like pre-blocked. I'll also have to submit my tester notes and all that kind of stuff, and obviously update my Ravelry page. And so I'll go ahead and put in some footage of what it looks like before and after. I do actually have some footage of how I block my knits from when I was blocking the mariner that I'll put in here so that you all can see that as part of the vlog portion. So I won't show you the actual blocking of this particular tea, but I will show you the process of how I block my knits in case you are interested in doing that, because I do use a spin dryer to block my knits and I find it to be really effective. And yeah, I have been chatting for a really long time, which means this is going to be a really long video, but such is life. Hopefully you're enjoying it so far, and I will see you tomorrow evening. And we're back. So, yeah, if you are watching this video and you have noticed some of the dates and when this video is going live, you know that it's been about 7 weeks since I actually filmed the bulk of the video. I think that I had very high hopes for myself, and actually, it the weekend actually went really well with regard to filming and all that jazz. And I think the footage is what it is. I'm not the best at vlogs, but I got everything done, or most things done that I wanted to get done. And then I figured I would film the outro during the week, sort of during the work week, and life just happened because such is life. So I was talking about finishing up my midterm paper, and now I'm completely finished with the semester. So that's interesting. So yeah, coming to you 7 weeks later, still no makeup, different sweatshirt. Funny enough, same color on my nails, just happenstance. And so I wanted to go ahead and close out this video. It's been so long that I actually had to go. There was still a portion of the video that I needed to edit, which is why it didn't go out also sort of in a timely manner, which then held me back in terms of filming this part. And then it's been so long that I had to go and rewatch everything after I'd edited the second vlog that you all have just seen, so that I can figure out what it was that I was talking about. But I just realized that I did not turn on my light, so let me go ahead and do that really quick. Okay, I don't think that you'll notice anything from a me lighting perspective, but I know that having the studio light helps with the color because essentially evens out. I don't have just light coming in on one side, I have light coming in on the other side. So the weekend went really well. I did accomplish most of the goals that I had set out for. I think when I started sort of the talking portion, most everything, in terms of getting the socks going and all that kind of stuff, those had already sort of happened, and it was really making some major progress on my Mariner sweater. That was the big order of the weekend. And yeah, since it's been so long, all of the projects are completely finished, and so I wanted to go ahead and share them really quick with you. I'm not going to go into any details because I actually do have the podcast that went live where all of these are featured. So if you want the details as well as FO pictures and me wearing them, go check out the podcast, which I'll link up above for you all. And yeah, so I'll go ahead and get started. I guess I'll show you first the Avenue tee, which was already finished, and it just needed some blocking. And so I did manage to block that. Ooh, now I feel like this is getting blown out now in a not good way. Let's go ahead and turn off the lights. Okay, I promise. This is I know it's chaos. Okay, there we go. So it's been folded up, but I did finish my Avenue tee. And I did block it, and I managed to get finished pictures of it, which was really exciting. And then the socks, because this is one that I had kind of been knitting on throughout the weekend, so I did manage to finish the socks. I actually did finish the first sock completely that weekend, even though it wasn't my intention. And that was because I think in one of the clips you'll see that I kind of, after sort of socializing with friends a lot throughout the weekends, I kind of came home and just needed to not have anything on. So I sat here actually for a bit and just listened to some lo-fi music, which usually helps me kind of just unwind. And I finished the first sock that weekend, and then I worked on the second one. And so those are all nice and done. And then the Mariner. So I got most of my goal for the weekend done. So as a reminder, reminder myself, because you all have just watched that part hopefully, but I wanted to get the neckband done as well as the first sleeve done. And so I did finish the neckbands, and then I finished the first sleeve through to the cuff. So I only had the cuff left to do, and this is what it looks like. So again, also it's been folded up, so we have a little bit of creasing going on, but this one is completely finished. I want to say I finished it like maybe Wednesday that week. So then I was able to give it another really good block, and then I was able to wear it for the photo shoot. And so that was a really fun photo shoot. Symphony, my friend Symphony and I went to the Brooklyn Botanic Gardens, and so we took pictures of both the Avenue Tea and the Mariner, and then we were able to meet up with Tashi for brunch, and we just had a really lovely weekend in Brooklyn. And then the other project that I had shown you all, which is crazy when I look at it now because I had only finished the second pearl ridge. So I didn't work on this at all the rest of the weekend. So what you saw in the clip previous is all that got done, but it is now finished. And I absolutely love it. And yeah, I think it's just really weird lighting today. It's a cloudy day, but I think like the sun is also just coming straight in. So the lighting is a little weird, more so than normal, because usually I have the opposite problem where it's not that things are blown out, it's usually things are really dark in this corner. So it is what it is. But yeah, I managed to finish that guy up, and then I took pictures of it a few weeks later when we were up at the cabin for my mom's birthday. We actually went up and spent the week there, which was sort of her request for us to go up there. So yeah, that was kind of a little bit of a chatty vlog, how I get some of my knits done. I don't know, I'm filming this on Saturday, and I typically post on Sundays, but I do want to hard code in some captions into the vlog portion, so I'm not sure that this will actually go up on Sunday like I intend it to. So whenever you are seeing this, I hope that you're all well. I think you should be seeing this if you're seeing it when it goes live before my next podcast episode. So I will be releasing the regular podcast in the first week of June as usual. So first Sundays of June that will be going up. And yeah, life has been really interesting the last few weeks. So I think I'm going to do a little bit of a knit and chat too, and all of that kind of stuff. But let me go ahead and stop rambling, end this video here. I hope that you enjoyed sort of a little bit of the method behind the madness in terms of how I organize my knitting, how I organize my making, and making sure that it doesn't get too stressful. Of course, life is stressful, so sometimes it gets a little stressful, especially if you're like me and you have not only multiple crafts, but also multiple whips going at any given time. And yeah, I think that's all I have to share with you all. I will see you in June for the podcast. I'm not sure what my summer schedule is going to look like, so I guess we will see you in the next one. And until then, I hope that you're taking care of yourselves, your loved ones, and each other. And I'll see you next time.